What's up traders, welcome to Failure to Displace. In this video we're going to analyse both today's London session and New York session, where I've been hunting for the unicorn entry on EU, GU and also the Nasdaq. Not taking any trades, however I do want to document this setup that happened on the pound USD on GU in the New York session, which has just netted 2R. It's not a trade that I've taken, but I want to get this down because it's a really interesting setup and something worth considering in the future. Let's jump into the analysis now and see what happened during today's two sessions. So as always, we're going to start off our analysis on the daily time frame just to see where we're delivering from and see if we can establish a nice daily bias. Before we jump into the actual analysis, please go ahead and drop the video a like. I would really appreciate the support. Now first we will take a look at the economic calendar for today. We do have red folder news. We had a red folder news drop CPI for the pound at 2 AM this morning. So this was positive news, we can see, as the news dropped. Because it's on the pound, it can also affect the euro. So we'll do our first analysis on the euro and then we'll move over to the pound. Then also we need to be aware that the dollar does have news at 8:30 AM in the New York AM session as well to be aware of. So two potential news catalysts happening today. On euro, we still have our bearish bias. I was basing my bias on the fact that we swept these relative equal highs, we've closed back into the range, we've been delivering for nearly 2 weeks now from this bearish fair value gap. Because we are back inside this range, my eyes are drawn on this as the higher time frame draw on liquidity, so expecting this sell side to get taken. What we are doing at the moment, however, is we are tapping the top of this bullish fair value gap. And if you watched yesterday's video, you saw that we did take this swing low. So a swing low over a fair value gap could lead to a bullish reaction. So because I'm quite new to daily bias, this is kind of a new situation for me. I'm trying to figure out the best way to attack this. Essentially, I'm erring on the side of the displacement, and the current displacement is to the downside. So we've left a large bearish fair value gap here, and then currently we've got a very large engulfing candle breaking structure with the body closed below this break of structure as well. So this is today's current price action. Going into the London session, I was still bearish, hoping for a pullback into the range for then a continuation through to target this sell side liquidity. Let's drop onto the hour now and look at the price action with our bearish bias in mind. So here we are on the daily chart. This is our swing low that we have just taken out yesterday, and then you can see that overnight in the Asia session we took out previous day's low. So again, I'm looking for shorts right at the bottom of the range, which it does make me concerned, to be fair. It doesn't feel natural to be shorting this low down. I would prefer a pullback higher to create a short. Looking at potential 1 hour areas of interest where we will hunt our unicorn entry on the 5 minute. We've got this swing high, which is buy side liquidity from the Asia high. We have this bearish fair value gap that was created in the Asia session. We pull a fib, potentially from the New York high would be a better fib, I think, but if we pull it on the daily range, we can see at the top of that fair value gap is an optimal trade entry. So we could potentially pull up, fill this fair value gap, and then look for a reversal to take the low to continue our bearish bias, displacing hopefully towards that sell side liquidity that we highlighted on the daily time frame. So that's what I was attacking the session with, essentially looking for a reaction either at this fair value gap or taking the buy side liquidity. Keeping in mind that we do have news dropping at 2 AM, so this may affect price. Drop onto the 5 minute time frame. I'm going to remove the fib because we are aware the optimal trade entry is around the top of this hourly fair value gap. Here we are on the 5 minute time frame now. We'll start scrolling through price action, see how things develop. So open of London, strong bullish move. This is the news drop, bit of a whipsaw action. Eventually we do move higher into our hourly points of interest. So this is where we can start looking for our unicorn model. At the moment, this is not an ideal setup for a unicorn because these down closed candles here would be the order block that we would need to see fail in order to flip those into a breaker block. So they're currently an order block supporting price. You can see we've whipped into this with a large wick and then displaced away quite heavily at the moment, up into optimal trade entry. Another displacement back into this order block. This is a strong reaction, so a big buyback as well. So this is not showing bearish momentum at the moment. On the 5 minute, we're looking very, very bullish. Consolidating now, coming into the silver bullet hour. So this is 3 AM, the open of the silver bullet hour. We'd engineered some liquidity, pulled above the fair value gap here at the open of the silver bullet hour. Nice reaction. The eyes are kind of on the Asia high at the moment. Failed to take the Asia high. So we've got a bearish candle here. This would be a breaker block. We've got a swing high, down to a swing low, to a higher high. We've closed through that now, so this is not an order block any longer. It's not supporting price, it potentially acts as resistance, so this is a breaker. Could get a retest for a continuation lower. If you're looking at our trading model, however, take a moment and let me know what's wrong with this, why this is not an entry for us. Yep, that's right. You should hopefully have got this right. There's no fair value gap inside that breaker block. So this isn't the unicorn entry. So a retest of this wouldn't give us an entry. We need displacement inside the breaker block. We are getting a large candle here. We do displace lower, but this is outside the breaker block. So this is not within the trading plan. You can see price coming now. We're just outside the silver bullet hour, so there's no entry there. What I will note is on the 1 minute time frame, which I'm not trading, I'm trying to get away from the 1 minute. However, on the 1 minute, there was an entry. So if we drop into the 1 minute time frame at the high here, you can see we've got 3 pushes, 1, 2, 3, break lower. This or this, these consecutive down closed candles actually would be our breaker block. On the 1 minute, 1, 2, 3. So these are the highest up closed candles that created a swing low before the new high and then was broken through. We did leave a fair value gap inside that breaker block, just down here. And price obviously did tap that and then move away. So on the 1 minute time frame, we did get an entry up at the high here, and also this did come in at 3:30, so open of a new half-hour candle as well. But that's kind of moving back to 2023 model that I was trading, not following the 5 minute unicorn that I'm trying to stick to this time round. At least we know up at this high of the session there was a 1 minute entry, which I didn't take. Price has moved too far away now. You would never look for a reaction at this breaker block with it being so far down in the range. Back under that hourly fair value gap, closing back through. So just not nice price action on the euro. There's nothing that's getting me excited. Coming up towards 5 AM now, so the session has closed and there was no entry for me at that point. So nothing that I could do on the euro. Let's jump onto the pound and analyze what happened on the pound. So here we are on the daily time frame on the pound as well. A little bit more consolidation on the pound, so not as clean price action. What I'm noting in here is that we took these relative equal highs. We are now currently displacing lower away from these highs, so we should be seeking internal liquidity. We've swept external liquidity, we've swept it here, and then we've swept it here, so we should be looking for internal liquidity. So where's our closest internal liquidity? Where is our fair value gap indicator? There we go. Internal liquidity, the closest one is down here. So this is currently an open fair value gap. Relative equal lows just below it, just above it, sorry. Quite a strong draw on liquidity then. Relative equal lows into an inefficiency, obviously a larger inefficiency just below that one. We do have swing lows be aware of down here. So we're displacing lower. So again, coming into the session, I do have a bearish bias. We obviously have the news dropping at 2 AM. So let's drop onto the hourly chart now. Start looking at our levels on the hourly. So here we are on the hourly chart, and coming into the session, you can see that we are sweeping that liquidity that we highlighted earlier on. So one of the swing lows has been taken out before our session opens up. We are very, very close to the lower level of liquidity. And so when we do get so close to this, I often expect that this is a trap and we will come back and run that level of liquidity pretty quickly. We are leaving bearish fair value gaps. So if we are bearish, then we've got these as potential areas to react to. Asia is clearly displacing lower. So again, we're looking for a continuation. Fib from the high to the low. You can see that the upper fair value gap's right in optimal trade entry. Does align with this kind of order block as well. We do have obviously relative equal highs at the top of the Asia session for buy side liquidity. But these are potential areas of interest. Specifically, I've been more interested in this one. Again, we're shorting very, very low down in the range, which just doesn't feel natural to me at the moment. I would prefer some kind of pullback, but this is sticking to the plan. Drop onto the 5 minute and see what we get offered. Keeping in mind now that news is just about to drop at 2 AM. The news drops, very, very bullish news, huge engulfing candle to the upside. Kind of makes shorts redundant at this point because it's so bullish. I don't know if I'd want to jump in front of this looking for a short trade. Price continues to be bullish right the way through the session. So we've smashed the Asia high. We are displacing above the Asia high, so it doesn't look like it's pulling back at any moment. Continues higher. Up into a new week opening gap, which is that highlighted orange-green line. Potentially, we've got the New York previous session high just up here. Pullback, there's no unicorn entry at this point. The swing low that created the swing high would be right down here. So we would need strong displacement through that level. This is kind of an order block at the moment. We'll potentially be flipping this hourly fair value gap into an inversion fair value gap to act as support now, because we are closing above it. I'd be more interested following the displacement. Again, I wouldn't be so keen to short this because it was just such a strong reaction, kind of jumping in front of a train. Let's get rid of that buy side, we don't need it anymore. We do take the New York high. Again, massively bullish move. We are out of the session now, 4:55. So there was no entry. Again, specifically looking for short trades, but there was no entry given for a short. What I will say is there was a potential entry for a long. If you were going to follow the displacement, we did clear through this breaker block here. So this is kind of the swing high that led to this swing low. That was tapped perfectly. That was right during the news drop if you were brave enough to do that. We did have a fair value gap inside this breaker block. It was tapped perfectly and then price accelerated away. Stop loss would need to be down here somewhere. So potentially if you were bullish, that would have been the entry. Again, if you were just following displacement, potential entry there, but again, not part of my plan. So moving this through now to the New York session, I'm going to drop onto the hourly time frame because this is what's really interesting. Had a bearish bias, so I wasn't looking for longs. However, we do have a very, very nice unicorn model on the hourly now. So we created this swing high, created this swing low, and then displaced through it, leaving this up closed candle here. So that is now a breaker block with an hourly fair value gap through it. So we have an hourly unicorn here. And again, following displacement, maybe we should flip the bias, because it did have a bearish bias, but we are seeing huge break of structure with displacement on the hourly. So maybe the early indication that the bias is shifting and we are going bullish, especially after, again, looking at the news. It was positive news for the pound on CPI. So I just want to document this, because if this happens again, it may be something that we can recall and profit from. So we skip forward into the open of the New York session. New York trades down. I'm going to drop onto the 5-minute now. As New York opens, we do have that 8:30 news release, which is just here. So this was the core retail and retail sales news drop. So that's where we gapped down. Price is coming down, and then we have an hourly area of interest here for a long position, if indeed we were switching bias because of that massive hourly displacement. Price comes into the hourly unicorn. So this took out this low. So again, following displacement at this point, we can see here this candle here just swept the low. So what we had was we had a high down to a low, to a lower high, to a lower low, and then broken, which would mean that this highest up closed candle in this leg that swept liquidity, so the stop hunt leg, this is our breaker block. Following displacement, so we've got this massive engulfing candle. This is a displacement candle showing us that we are driving price. We're going into a buy program at this point, leaving a massive fair value gap over the top of the breaker. So we've got a 5-minute unicorn now as a result of testing a 1-hour unicorn entry. You take an entry from the top of your breaker block. Stop loss would have to be 3 PD arrays, so this is part of the trading plan. We are looking for 3 PD arrays to cover our stop loss. So we would have the breaker block, we'd have the fair value gap, and we have these two down closed candles, which are an order block. Now I haven't traded this because I don't trade the pound in the New York session. I'm looking at Nasdaq only in the New York session. But maybe this is something I need to change, because obviously we do have big moves on euro and pound as well. So I'm potentially losing out on profits by not focusing on those as well, especially if we get such a clean setup, displacement being the key. Price pumps higher. We come down, we tap the top of the breaker block perfectly. A couple of pips into the breaker block, and then a huge reaction. We're looking for 2R. Fixed 2R for our trades. Just above these highs that we've created here into a 5-minute fair value gap, 5-minute order block. So it's a logical take profit. Got a bit of barcode price action here, so a bit of indecision. We're rejecting 50% of this bearish fair value gap. So it's not the most confidence inspiring price action. However, it does play out. Zero drawdown. We tapped in and then we hit the 2R. So really interesting development on pound in the New York session, something that I definitely want to get documented. We'll jump onto Nasdaq now. There was no trade for me on Nasdaq, so again, this is a trade-free day. This is just a hindsight analysis on the pound. Let's have a look at what Nasdaq did for us. So here we are on the Nasdaq. We are rejecting from this bearish fair value gap. Tapped it several times, unable to break through it. This makes me think that we need to seek lower liquidity. So I'm bearish on the Nasdaq today. Swing low at this point, so we'll reject from a internal liquidity, which would be a fair value gap, looking for external liquidity, which would be this swing low or potentially even this swing low here. If I could get that to tap. I'm going into Nasdaq with a bearish bias, expecting lower prices feeding from this. We do have this inversion fair value gap, so this is just something to be aware of. Kind of playing ping pong between this inversion fair value gap and that bearish fair value gap. But on the basis of how I'm establishing bias, we should be delivering from internal liquidity to external liquidity, which would be a swing low. So let's stick with the bearish bias on the Nasdaq. Here we are coming into the New York session. So we have sell side liquidity from yesterday's low, which would be a really nice target. We are looking for bearish PD arrays that may present a bearish move for lower prices. So we have hourly fair value gap, which we are interacting with at the moment. Several hourly fair value gaps. So another one just above us up here. What's nice about this one is it's actually a balanced price range. So you can see we had a bullish fair value gap that's been traded through now. Where these two overlap is a balanced price range. So I quite like the look of that. Balanced price ranges generally offer a really nice reaction. And also just as additional confluence, that does look like it's pretty close to optimal trade entry. So from this swing high down to the current swing lows, we've got optimal trade entry. And we can see here into the London session, we've got a couple of relative equal lows here that we've put in on the hourly. So that would be a good draw on liquidity. So the ideal scenario would be a pump up, tap the balanced price range, optimal trade entry, and then a rejection lower. Obviously, we know that we do have news at 8:30, so we need to be aware of the news drop at 8:30. And we'll drop onto the 5-minute. The session is about to open at 8 AM. Not going to really be looking for any entries prior to the 9:30 open. We need to let the news do its thing. So the news has dropped. Price has tumbled. We've taken out those relative equal lows. So there was no entry given prior. We didn't get a stop hunt as New York opened up to give us our 5-minute unicorn model. We have come up, broken structure. You could potentially class those as a breaker block. We've got a massive gap through the breaker block, so I would class that as displacement through that breaker block, but it's never pulled back. And again, this is actually on the news drop, so I wouldn't want to be jumping in front of this. I want to see if the news can act as a catalyst to an already established trade idea. And this is rejecting from an hourly fair value gap, which we tapped prior to the New York session. So I wouldn't really be interested in that. We'll come down, we've taken the sell side, so we've taken previous day's low, getting a bit of a reaction. Massive again as 9:30 opens, displacement lower at the 9:30 open. Coming into the silver bullet hour now, so we've just closed the first 9 till 10 AM. We can see between 9 and 10 we've left a fair value gap up here, so we've got an hourly fair value gap for potentially lower prices. We've already swept liquidity at the low there, so are we going to be drawing down ultimately to this low? I'm not too sure. I'm not convinced at this. I would have preferred to pull back up into this area for then a short. I don't like shorting at the low of the day like this. Oh, it skipped forward because I've changed price. You can see price does ultimately reverse back into this fair value gap, back into the hourly fair value gap outside the trading window, so no entry at this point. So there was no bearish move for me to get involved in, essentially is what I'm saying. We did potentially get a reversal for a long trade, so I did look at this. We broke through this mitigation block. The mitigation block had a fair value gap inside it on the 5-minute. So again, this isn't the unicorn entry, and I was bearish, having had massive bearish displacement anyway. Again, trying to take a long here would feel like you're jumping in front of a train, but this did play out, so it's worth noting. Three PD arrays would have been the mitigation block, the fair value gap, and then you're going to have to cover this order block. 2R was a potential target. And I have no idea where price is now because we are outside the trading window. This entry was obviously just inside that trading window. And we are making our way up now. Sorry, this is live price action. So we are making our way up from that entry. There was nothing for me there. Didn't take NAS. The best setup, I believe, the most interesting one at least, was the pound setup. Hourly unicorn with a 5-minute unicorn confirmation. So I hope you found the analysis useful. Tricky day today. Sitting on your hands is actually harder than engaging with the market. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of discipline not to jump into trades. And today was just one of those days. If you did find the video useful, please drop it a like. I really appreciate your support. If you got any comments or feedback, leave it down in the comments section below. It's always great to hear from you. And if you're enjoying the content, want to see more stuff like this, then please do consider subscribing. It'd be fantastic to have you on board. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.